Open the space. Shay and I have some questions that were given to us by the brilliant Signe. Can we give Signe some love? And so I'll be looking at this iPad to review those questions and to make sure that we cover as much as we can in this time. And we'll try to save some time for question and answers. And also this is about an exchange. So again, so the people who are, if you have someone in front of you, stand up, my young friends. Come this way. There's seats here. Come be close. Come be close. So, yeah, there's one over here. There's like 6 up here. If you feel able and you want to be on the ground, you can do that too. Yes. You can stay here. You can stay here to ask questions. He's like, can I hang back? You all up in this. Yeah. Be a part of the conversation. Yeah. We're very collaborative. All right. So again, just to review our quick agenda, because I like to know, I need a roadmap. So we'll start with this ritual. We'll open the space a little bit. We'll talk about our stuff, our history together, our work, guided by some beautiful questions that you wrote, and hopefully some time for Q&A and follow-ups. So if you can find yourself into a position, either sitting or standing, whatever you feel free, however you feel good, to stand, have your feet grounded. If you want to be sitting, you can, but find your feet firmly planted on the earth. And thank you so much to our sister Alexis Polygums for bringing in the breath this morning. We're going to continue the spirit of that meditation now as we think about centering our breath and our intention for our time together today. And I'm just looking around this room because there's like sisters who I just met who I'm like, they know this. This is what y'all do too, I'm sure. You know, this is how we do. So you can have your eyes open or closed. And I invite you to not change your breath, but just notice your breath. Notice where it is, how it is with you today. And breathe. And normally, and we don't have time for it today, we would do a check-in where everyone has an opportunity to check in a little bit about how they're doing. So I'm going to ask you to do that check-in for yourself. Think about where you are right now, where you came from, what's on the front of your brain, what's on the back. Let your mind go to whatever place you feel right now. Let those thoughts come, let them race, whatever it is for you. And take just a moment of silence to let that be. Now that you've begun to bring your consciousness to your thoughts, begin to bring your consciousness to your body, this vessel that is yours, that is beautiful, that is perfectly imperfect and available to you to be who you are meant to be in this world. Check in with this body of yours. If you can sense there's a part that needs some breath, some stretch, some healing, try to take a deeper inhale and send your life force, your love life force, to that place in your body with your breath. You have that power. So breathe that in, and maybe that's to your back. If it's ailing you, you can add sound if you want to. Breathe that in and send it to your knee. Maybe your knee is saying, oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Breathe that in, that love life force. Maybe it's your stomach, your heart. Connect to your body. And in whatever way feels good and right to you, tell yourself, I am enough. beautiful. And in this space, you are loved and safe. And with that intention, I now invite us to connect our breathing to each other. So I'll ask you to breathe in together and exhale. Another one of those, breathe in and exhale. Yes, and now this time I'm going to exhale with some sound. Breathe in and let the vibration go. Breathe in and let that exhale. Again, breathe in and exhale. And give your body a shake as you exhale. Breathe in, sound and shake. One more time like that. Big breath in and exhale, shake. Great, and open your eyes. And just make eye contact with someone else in the space and give them a gesture of letting them know you've got them. You're going to hold them up in this time that we are together.
And make sure you really lock eye contact. And if we could just steal a teeny moment in the spirit of our type of work, which is really just honoring who's in the room and why we're in the room and what it took to get in the room today.
Yes.
We would just really invite you, even if it feels weird, just trust and believe. Just have a seat, make yourself comfortable, but find somebody, a neighbor, and to the right or the left or the back or the front, and just say one thing that makes you special. Share that with somebody. This is as quickly, and we just want you to have that moment to connect, and one thing that makes you special. So you're either receiving or giving, or you're doing both. Does that make sense? Yeah, and don't think about it too much, because there's so many things that make us special. So just take a moment, and if you can't find a partner, grab somebody. You don't have to get up and do
I can't.
just one thing.
So to close out this moment, there's this, and this will come up as we talk as well. But how many people have ever been to a physical therapy? Raise your hand. Okay, have you seen those electrodes they like put on your body? Have you had that? I don't know what it's called. Whoa! That's what happens when people like electrode, and like it vibrates and like sends vibration. So Sister Alexis Pauline Gumbs this morning talked about women coming together and singing. And I just want to highlight that vibration is healing. And song and voice is literally vibration in the body. And so for our health, we have to sing. Whether we have the ability to sing or receive the vibration from someone else, we need that healing. So to close out this ritual, and you'll see it's not a full altar, but we have a little bit here to help ground me. This is what I needed today. Normally we would invite you to add to the altar for what you needed, so the next time we're in workshop together, you'll know that. But let's sing together. And I don't have a specific song to sing, so when I don't have a specific song to sing, I ask for the song to come. So we'll make a short song together and we'll sing it together. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Yes. So there was a lot of love in this space, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe it's like, I'm feeling the love with me now. I'm feeling the love. 2 more times. I'm feeling the love.
Feeling
ready now. You all got it, y'all got it. So I guess we do it. Now we want to do a first workshop, but we'll talk a little bit. But if you want to do introductions or something,
Okay. I am just going to provide you guys with a little bit of background of the souls that we have who are going to do this workshop this morning. Sha Cage and Signe Harriday together make up Mama Mosaic Theater, but they are two very distinctive, highly productive, generative artists in their own right, and so I'm going to share with you a little bit about their background. So we'll start, we'll start all the way over here with Sha. Sha Cage is an actor, playwright, and performance artist. Her work and activism has taken her all over the U.S. to South Africa, England, France, the Netherlands, Croatia, Mali, and Canada. I first met Sha Cage when I invited her as part of University of Women of Color to come do a poem for us, a spoken word. And I thought she was gonna come up and do the poem and spoken. No, she came from the back. She called in the ancestors through her spirit and sang her way up through the aisle and completely transformed that space into a healing space for those folks who were present. Okay, back to the script. First, Sha's been all over the Twin Cities, and I've been to many of her shows in the Twin Cities, but here are some of her noted theater roles. Agnes in Mixed Bloods, Agnes Under the Big Top, Helena in Frank Theater's Eclipse, The Bride in 10,000 Things Blood Wedding, Venus in Frank Theater's Venus, The Hottentot, Tania in the Minnesota History Theater's Kirk Puckett Story, Hester, I missed that, Hester in Frank Theater's Fucking A, and Josephine as Mixed Bloods Ruin, the founder, a founder of Mama Mosaic in Minneapolis, and teaches youth spoken word and performance through the Minnesota Spoken Word Association, where she is artistic director, a frequent face in print and television commercials. This Sha's social footprint is considerable. She has been named a community leader by the Lofts Equilibrium Program, a change maker by the Women's Press, and Female Artist of the Year by Urban Griot. Cornell West says of Sha's performance, inspiring and evocative, exclamation point. You will see a lot of that over the next couple of days. Welcome, Sha.
But at the end of the day, I'm just a regular old black girl that believes in our beauty and our madness and our mama.
Signe Harriday, first met her, or really worked with her with the Million Artist Movement, especially.
Ma'am repping in the house, thank y'all.
Yeah, so she is a multidisciplinary artist and performer, co-founder of Mama Mosaic Theater, where she is also associate company member of Pillsbury House Theater. She earned her MFA in acting at the American Repository Theater / Moscow Art Theater Institute for advanced training at Harvard University. Harriday has more than 15 years of extensive experience using creative dramatics to work with inner city youth from elementary age children to college age adults. She has developed different collaborating art organizations, diverse youth, and her own desire to be a positive agent of social change through the arts in her community. Her straightforward approach, coupled with sincerity, has enabled her to work with students who have a wide range of abilities, skills, and interests in the performing arts. She is an assistant Minneapolis questioner of all things, and she is a source of power, inspiration, but also really pushing us to elevate our integrity as we engage in social justice work in the Twin Cities. Welcome, Signe Harriday.
And I'm regular too.
So I have a little bit of anxiety because I think because of our practice, we're doers, and so I And we want, Signe mentioned it earlier, there's a need to want to get on our feet and like make something together, because that we have something to touch and something to take away. But I think that the room is filled with a lot of amazing energy. I think, Zenzile, thank you for inviting us to actually share our story. And our work is really about stories, women's stories, bringing women of color into the room as Mama Mosaic Theater. And so in founding that theater company, that was our mission. And so we just wanted to set a little bit of context and talk about what Mama Mosaic is, when we started, why we started, you know, the who, what, why, you know, and the challenges that are inherent in that as well. And yeah, and use that sort of as a point of departure into actually a conversation with you all.
That makes sense to me. Does that make sense to y'all? Oh, I like it when you talk back. That's good. That's good. And I think too, as we go, if there's questions that come from you all, I would prefer to not do question and answer at the end, but to have more of a dialogue as we go. So maybe a little bit about literally how we started. So Shay and I were in a production of For Colored Girls at Penumbra Theater in 1999. I'm a little bad with math sometimes. And some interesting things to note too, just because I want to make some connections to the earlier chat. Do you know Joel Branner? So, y'all know Joel Branner? Oh, y'all should know Joel Branner. Afro Homo Homos, and he's also written a bunch of work, and he's, he's an Afro Homo. But he was the choreographer on that particular project. It was directed by Kim Moore, who's another amazing artist and director. Oh, I'm seeing some nodding heads. That's good. That's good. And Lori Carlos, who was in the original production of For Colored Girls, and she was like a dramaturg and an assistant director on the project. So you can imagine that experience of doing that play. And at that time, in the history of Penumbra, there had not been that many women on the stage at the same time. Wow. And that's just it's an important note, because what happened is we were on this stage together and we felt this energy like, yes, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this some more, okay, great. And back then in Minnesota, there was the 550, there was nothing. When you talk about the American, and I see a theater historian here, when you talk about the American stage, access for women of color to telling our stories on that platform, there was a vacuum, there was a void, there was an intentional colonial agenda that excluded us from that experience. So there was no audition to go to for us. And kind of flippantly in the dressing room, we said, we should just make our own thing.
Yeah, let's start a company. Yeah.
Had no idea what we were saying. I didn't. Did you?
No, I didn't even know. Yeah, I didn't know what a company was. And actually, my only concept of like organized at that age, you know, I had Penumbra Theater, which is the black theater company here. Penumbra was the only example, but I didn't understand like how programs ran, or how, you know what I mean, how we took a concept and fed it to the community as an organized piece of performance and theater. But I think what was special about that experience is that there were enough of us that were longing for the same thing, and I think it was a sense of community. And so we formed Mama Mosaic Theater Company with Jeannie Park, so Signe Harriday, myself, and Jeannie Park. And even though the three of us were sort of the organizers behind the company, that we really viewed as a collective, less as a company, because we realized that it was really longing for ensemble and collaborative and exchange and women of color stories at the center. And so we brought in a lot of other women as writers, as bodies on stage, as dramaturgs, as lighting and technicians, people behind the scenes. We seek to really not just perform, but the whole picture in terms of like, what is the mentorship part of that? Who are the young people that we're feeding? How do we also bring in some of the folks we aspire to? And so how do we bring in a Lori Carlos or a Marcia Lorca? You know, how do we bring in some of these individuals so that the continuum of learning and growing is a circle? And then we really, early on, I think it's because we were so young and just clueless and feisty, we were like, and we're gonna like employ, we're gonna like we're going to change the field. We want to employ lots of women, and we want to flood the market with like women of color directors, because frankly, from our experience being classically trained in theater, we weren't seeing ourselves, like she said, not just in the text and the narrative, but just, directors, playwrights,
producers,
technicians. I mean, there was invisibility, and I know, I'll speak for myself, having moved from the South, I felt very extremely isolated. And so when I was cast in that production, it really was life changing for me, because first of all, I got my equity card in that production, which in the vein of equity,
which is our actors union. For those people who don't know what that is, it's the union of actors. It's one of the largest unions, actually.
Yeah, and it also is sort of the make or break in terms of like, are you actually able to live and survive on your artistry, or is it a hobby? And so that was transformative for me, because I kept going again, work, and so that was 15. So we produced back to back, year after year. We produced plays. We wrote our own pieces, and so we sit down as an ensemble with members from the community and say, what's missing? Where's the gap? What is the gap that we want to fill? Personally, but also community-wide.
Yeah.
And that's how we would come up with the ideas of the stories. And the first idea, although it was journals, the first piece we did was Menstruation Project.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back for one tiny second, just even because I want to tell the story of the beginning of journals. So, and this is important too for those of you who are thinking about theater and the relationship to social change. I think it's really important that the first thing that we collectively did was actually perform at a Free Mumia event. And I think that there's something about Genesis and where things come from that send you on a certain kind of trajectory. And that was true for us. And I was not deeply politicized in understanding the role of political prisoners. And so it was a very big awakening for me. And I also didn't consider myself as a writer. So literally, when we got together to do this little show for the Free Mumia event, I couldn't write. I couldn't put a pen to a page. I didn't know how to type on a computer. And Shay and Jeannie said, it's okay, we got you, sis, you can talk.
And she was the talker.
Can you tell? Some things don't change. And they dictated for me. And they literally wrote down what became my script or my part of that contribution. And what changed my life was that day, oh, I might cry, which is good. After the performance, I don't like to bow, I don't like all of those kinds of things. I like want to do the work and find the next piece of work. And after, some woman hung around and grabbed me leaving the theater in the aisle. And she looked me in the eye and she said, and I'm bad about remembering books, I've never seen myself on stage before. Thank you. And it changed my life. Because I then knew the power of what it feels like to reverberate with another human being, especially when we've had a sense of isolation, loneliness, oppression, systematic injustice, that we can heal each other and we see each other, we recognize ourselves in one another. And so that moment changed. So then we did journals, yes, and that was
his daughter. She was about 3 years old.
Was she that young?
Yeah. And she was like, what's a menstruation?
and that speaks to the importance of everyone's voice. And the oldest woman was maybe?
I think 72.
And so we interviewed all these women and we took their stories and we wove them together. We showed parts of the video in the show, and that became sort of our signature piece in a way. And then this is an image from the Bi Show, which we were looking at the intersectionality of sexuality and race, which was at Pillsbury House Theater. And that's an image from that. We also did a project called Making Medea, where we looked at the women who had infanticide, and what is it, like, what is that wretched reality when you have to take your child's life? And what does that mean for a woman? And I forgot to say our name, Mama Mosaic, right? So revolutionary mothering, When we created Mama Mosaic, none of us had children at the time. But we recognized, we understood that this connection to mothering, to nurturing, to developing, to our womanness, our sisterhood reality was a part of what was intrinsic to us. And then Jeannie got pregnant.
Yeah, Jeannie got pregnant, and it was actually it was a turning point, I think, for us as a company, because we were young women of color that, we weren't mothers. And so we had this individual that it was the mother in the group, and she had different needs, and her perspective changed, and it it transformed, I think, Signe and I know that I was very emotional about a lot of it, and heard some of the challenges that she had in terms of like, can I stay in the room? But you know what I mean? But I have, as a mother now, and one of the challenges that she had after she gave birth was postpartum depression. And I think in some ways we couldn't really relate personally, but we really felt deeply for what it was doing, how Jeannie was changing. And she told us a story that was not the story that ended up in Medea, but it sparked our search into more material about infanticide and women, other women that perhaps were dealing with postpartum depression or just stress or whatever it was that that led into them having to make those difficult decisions of dropping the baby over a bridge or putting the baby underwater or running from the baby. And we remembered some of the stories that our mentor, Lori Carlos, told us in terms of like women that live in war and how easy it is to judge those women that have to suffocate their children in the middle of the night to spare them from the ravages of war. And I just think growing up in that wisdom and her just putting a book in our hand and saying, read this. If you are really committed to telling our stories, really learn our stories, and that sort of, it broadened, I remember that being a turning point in terms of broadening our perspective, because I think when we started, we were very sort of personal, like me, Mississippi, there's so many stories that I feel like I want to tell about colored women in the South and poverty, you know what I mean? But I hadn't really thought globally in the way in the way things shifted. And so Jeannie created this piece that I can only barely remember, but it was so delicate, and she performed it. But it started off with words such as, I remember running the bathwater, like she loved it, warm. Some bubbles, suds, soft. I remember undressing her, piece by piece. I remember holding her fragile frame up and looking at her for the last time. And slowly, very slowly, I pushed her head in the water and I held her there. And it was like one of those pieces where, there was something about the way she told the story. This was not her story. This was an actual woman's story and confession of how she killed her daughter. But Jeannie talked about when she first had her daughter, and that feeling of, everybody expects you to be so happy, right? And you give birth, and I had a different experience as a mother, but I inhibited lots of stories like this. But she said I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility and not necessarily having anyone to confide in. And she said she remembers just looking at her limbs. I don't know if you remember the story, but it was chilling to me. And she said, Shay, you're supposed to look at the baby, and you're supposed to, look at her feet and her legs and her head. And she said, when she looked at her limbs, like her feet, her fingers, each one by one, and her, she said she started to feel anger. And then she started to get mad at herself for feeling that way. And we just talked about like how there are no outlets. Like, who do you talk to? Yeah. And when you're in your 20s and have a kid, and I know at that age, on the theater circuit for us, there weren't a lot of folks our age having kids.